Hey, I'm Sam.
And I'm Dane.
We shoot the shit about hockey before, during, and after the game.
But Puck Talk starts now.
Welcome to Puck Talk, everyone. We're back in podcast form. I'm Sam.
And I'm Dane.
And this is probably a little different than you're used to hearing from us. If you remember, if anyone's still, with us from when back in the old days, 2014. So if you don't know, we had a video, I guess, like weekly thing we did.
We got really drunk.
We got really drunk and we talked about hockey, and it was fun. That was so fun.
It was fun.
That was like, I think more than anything, I was like, every week we just went to do that. I was like, this is just gonna be a fun time hanging out and like all the stuff after that we did, like
yeah, I agree.
Singing to stuff. And
but
we found
it didn't really work.
Yep. No.
As fun as it was,
it didn't. I think what the issue is we felt like we had to do such short videos, and then ultimately we really just like touched on the fact that things happen in a week in hockey, and it was like, well, everyone knows that. It's not like I might have heard on Wednesday that something happened and then you're going to talk about it the next Monday. It's like, I don't need you to tell me that. I want to hear, your back and forth and
you couldn't really dive in.
No, not at all. And I think that this is going to be, it's a lot longer format, so it's just an opportunity for us to kind of like hang out and talk, conversationally. And
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So if you don't know, Sam is a Leaf fan.
I am.
And I am a Montreal Canadiens fan, living in Toronto.
Yeah.
Kind of sucks.
That's gotta suck.
But
yeah.
Support the boys.
It's pretty great living in Toronto and being a Leafs fan.
Big news today, though.
Yeah. The Las Vegas, I guess Vegas Golden Knights. I don't get that, by the way. Can I say that starting off? Why are they called the Vegas Golden Knights? That's not their city. It's I don't know.
It should have been Sin City.
Yeah. If
with
you're
like
gonna
a
go
super dark like color scheme, Sin City Aces. Or I know they wanted to avoid the whole, gambling connection.
Gambling in sports is pretty great though. But yeah, like if you're gonna go not the official city name, just go like something really like all out there. They should have. But anyways, they signed their first player, REID Duke.
REID Duke. So get this: if you Google REID Duke, REID Duke, the hockey player, does not show up right away. REID Duke, the Magic Gathering card player, does.
It's like his Wikipedia article on
his Twitter is the first thing that comes up.
Wow.
He tweeted an hour ago, wow, 50 million notifications about some other REID Duke hockey player doing something awesome, staying off Twitter for a while. He has 30K followers.
Yeah, because, like, as much as, like, I don't know, he's the most famous REID Duke, he's not that famous in Magic the Gathering champion.
No.
But that's pretty cool. Like, he's the first, I don't know, this guy clearly, he's a 21-year-old in the CHL, like, playing for the Brandon Wheat Kings, and, like, I guess he's been passed up on a lot. He was drafted by Minnesota, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and
never signed. So he actually re-entered the draft last year. And he skated with the Rangers.
Okay.
But they didn't sign him, so it's he's their first Golden Knight signed in team history, which is kind of cool. That's a claim to fame.
That's probably, I mean, if we're going to be honest, that's probably going to be his only claim to fame. He was the CHL lifer, and, like, I don't know. It'd be cool if he made the team, but, like, I don't know. The scouts are trying to do something cool, so they're trying to make some moves. They're trying to find unsigned players in the minor leagues, but I mean, it's a guy that's 21 years old and was still playing for the Wheat Kings. So
yeah, he's been in the league this is his 6th season.
That's crazy.
He came in as a 15-year-old and he's playing as an overager. 6 years in the
is it 15
WHL.
like you have to be like an exemption age to get drafted?
Yeah. Oh, exemplary status.
What happened?
A lot of people on Twitter today were saying like that has an impact. What does that say about his talents?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're good enough to reach the OHL as a 15-year-old, like who else does that? Like John Tavares did it.
Oh yeah.
Connor McDavid did it. Not many.
Generally, when you hear about people doing that, by and large, they are ending up being like top 2, top 3 picks.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
But it'll be interesting. I mean, it's a claim to fame. I think it'd be super cool just to, everyone in the hockey world knows that name now.
Exactly. Yeah. It's been a thing for a day. And the fact that the Magic the Gathering thing was like a connection just adds like this whole... That's what I love when there's just like stories like that in hockey.
Yeah.
Like even if they're like, just, little side stories. It's pretty cool. And it also opens the floodgates now for like, what are the Vegas Knights going to do next?
For sure.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other things coming down the pipeline.
For sure. What else happened today?
Let's see. We got the GM meeting. There was a lot of league rule changes discussed. Some really like pie in the sky type stuff, but also, lots of other things. Face-off circles being changed, the tie system and the wins and losses, some other stuff.
I really hope one day they go with the 3 point for a win in regulation,
Mm-hmm.
2 points for an overtime win, and 1 point for an overtime loss.
Yeah, I think that's definitely better than what they have. That's like a soccer type thing, I think, right?
European.
Yeah, just
I think European hockey does it too.
Okay, yeah. I would like it to be in line with kind of the other North American sports where it's like you do the win or loss. I kind of like the idea of like staying in overtime. And with 3-on-3, like it can't go on forever. That's the thing with like people talking about, if you had overtime, how long could it extend? It could theoretically extend forever. But 3-on-3 is so action-packed that like you could just like...
I agree.
You're going to tire yourself out completely before,
What if I mean this is the argument that's been happening since they introduced 3-on-3, but what about 4-on-4?
Yeah.
For however many minutes, then 3-on-3.
That'd be pretty cool.
I think that's better than a shootout.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think everything's better at shootout. We've tried a shootout for it's about a decade now, and like I don't know, it's just a bizarre way to decide games.
What other rules did you like today? Any that you like?
I don't know. I like the discussion about the point system the most. The face-off circle one I found really odd. Like I don't like maybe I'm a bit of a traditionalist in like keeping the rules the way they are, but there's such a like crazy like idea of like for anyone that doesn't know, the idea was basically like take the two face-off circles in the offensive zone and just make them one in the center, and that reduces board battles. And I don't know, like that.
I think it's too different.
Yeah, it's way too different. Like you're changing the game so fundamentally. If you're changing the playing surface like that significantly, it's gonna be too jarring. And like you're just. And what if it doesn't work? Then you've tinkered with the fundamentals of the game for like I don't know 5 years, and you say it doesn't work, and you're gonna go back. It's kind of a dangerous precedent. Like I wouldn't do that.
The rule change I do enjoy talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Is the offside. So right now, an offside, you have to have a skate planted outside of the zone to be considered out. You can straddle the line as long as you have a skate touching on both sides. What they've discussed, which I guess from my my 10 minutes of research, most GMs kind of are aligned with.
Yeah,
is having a plane, kind of like in football with
like
the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
Because how many times have we? Now that they're reviewing a lot of offside calls, how many times are we looking at kind of a crappy camera with a blade that shines white, on a holder that shines white, whether it's touching the ice or not? It's too difficult.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you could put in some sort of like motion or sensor tracking, which how can that not be done? I guess it's ice, so it's like...
It's like the tennis ball in tennis when they're like, I would like a challenge. And then they whip out this crazy, like complicated, intricate... model that's like, it was 1 millimeter on the line. It's good.
That's in a larger...
I don't understand how that works.
Yeah, in a larger like kind of discussion of sports, I feel like it's weird that we have all this technology to do stuff like that clearly, and yet when we do reviews with officials, they like go and look at it on a little like screen. It's like you're not gonna know. Like we have the technology to literally like feel if the puck crossed the line or not, and you can immediately say yes or no. Like let that happen. It's gonna speed up the game so much.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's crazy.
And I do like getting calls right, but I don't like 7-minute delays in games where the refs are just can't decide. I think that really impacts kind of the speed of the game, the momentum. It
ruins people's momentum if you... I mean, it's almost like a tactic you could use, like, I'm going to call like a coach's challenge and then I'm going to derail something.
The other rule that I'm very much for is changing the bye week system. Obviously, that was a kind of a failure this year. But changing it so a tired team plays a tired team, or a rested team plays a rested team. Yep. You know, so you don't get the guys coming out of a back-to-back playing the guys who have had a week off.
Yeah, exactly.
I do like that.
It's weird to me that, like, who thought that was, like, a good idea? Like, what was kind of the idea behind having a bye week? Was it just the idea, like, they'll get rest if they have a week off?
I think all came down to the All-Star break. And how some people, you know, you have the guys who aren't all-stars who go take off with the wife or the kids or whatever for the weekend. That's like 3 or 4 days of relaxation, of rest.
Right.
But the guys who are going to the All-Star games, you know, the most important, I mean, when I say most important, I mean the guys who are kind of like the leaders of the team.
Yeah. And I mean, hockey's a business, and like they're the people that are marketing the game, and you want them to always be
for sure
at the top and good.
So I think it kind of stems from that, where some guys are getting a break and other guys aren't. Even, I mean, it is the All-Star weekend where they go and they're celebrities.
Yeah.
But I think it just stems from that, and giving everyone a rest, you know, really makes a difference when you're, you know, 8 games deep in the playoffs.
No, totally. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, those were, some interesting. It's good that they're having these conversations, and who knows what will happen, you know, next season or whatever. But you know, you gotta think about these things. So those were some of the rules. Let's, I guess, jump into the Habs. They've been having a good little tear there, and it looked a little bad there for a second. It was like, are they actually going to make the playoffs after leading the division all year?
I read a comment not even a week ago, and it was trade Radulov. See what the return is for a playoff team. Trade Radulov, and hopefully he signs with us back in the summer, and trade a couple defensemen.
Like an almost a tank.
Yeah.
That's bizarre. Like they were going to make the playoffs. Really,
they're in first place. I mean, they've been challenged a couple times, but
they would have had to tank at the level they did last year. Which it could happen, but that was not likely to happen. And
but it's great. I mean, there was a span of 4 games. I think it was 4, where it was overtime win, overtime win.
Yep.
Overtime win, and then we scored with 8 seconds left.
Must be nice to win in overtime.
And then I guess the stat line was like 4 wins, but we held the lead for 8 seconds through those 4 wins.
Oh, really?
Because we were always either tied or playing from behind. So we tie it, go into overtime, win it, tie it, go into overtime. So 4 games, 4 wins, but we only had a lead for 8 seconds.
Wow.
Which is nuts. But
it shows kind of some problems, but that's a better problem than having the Leafs. And I guess we'll get to that, but yeah.
Claude Julien, you know, he's doing things. I'm so glad they hired him.
I mean, anything is better than Terry. And
for sure.
Jeez.
You know, they traded Davy Desharnais.
Oh,
Every other game, I felt like he was getting promoted to the top line center. Every time Galchenyuk got in a little bit of a rut, he got promoted. It's like, what are you doing playing him there? So
where did he go again?
Edmonton.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Brandon Davidson.
Okay. So he's going to be a roster player on the Oilers for sure.
Third line.
That's a nice piece for them.
Yeah, totally. And don't get me wrong, like he's a good player, but like you have to utilize him in the correct ways.
Yeah.
Throwing him number 1 center, like he's a good passer, sure, but I'm glad he's not going to be number 1 center anymore.
Right. Yeah.
But man, Price, 947 save percentage since the bye week. So since the new coach, 1.47 goals against average, which is like crazy to me. Like, how do you? I've read it a couple times. I don't necessarily believe it, but some people were claiming that he was tanking on purpose to get rid of the coach.
What?
I mean, you can't read into that, but people have been saying that, and it's interesting.
I like the conspiracy theories, but
it's interesting.
So, what do you think about him getting back into the Vezina conversation with?
I think it's too late.
Yeah. I mean, because he has so much capital built up. Because now he's the guy that won, you know, Hart Trophy Vezina in the same year. Like, he's still that guy. And I think that gives him like the name recognition with the voters. But yeah, I think I agree.
I think his slump was just a little bit too long.
Yeah.
He went on that slump. People were like, "Oh, trade him. Should have went with Halak. Blah blah blah. He's not that good." But You know.
Yeah, Lex worked out great. Waivers.
He's just, I don't know what it is, but I'm glad he's back to regular old Carey Price. If anything, if the last 6 weeks have taught me anything, being a Habs fan, it's that you have to trust the process.
Right.
You know, for a little bit there, like there's so many speculations of Marc Bergevin being interested in Landeskog and Duchesne and Hansel, and I'm actually quite glad we didn't sell the farm to acquire one of those guys, because let me tell you what, trade deadline, I was cursing him. I couldn't believe the Dwight King,
the moves he made.
The Jordy Ben I kind of understand. I didn't understand Andreas Martinson, and I still don't understand Steve Ott, other than the fact that he is like a top 5% playoff or top 5% face-off
guy. That's important,
and that's something the Habs have like really struggled with.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of get that, but trade deadline day, I was kind of cursing his name. And I mean, I watched the game against the Rangers on Saturday.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe how good Jordy Ben was. I couldn't believe how good Dwight King played, and this Andreas Martinson guy. I had heard the name, hadn't really. I don't watch much Colorado.
Yeah,
but holy smokes, the plays that guy was making, I couldn't. Just smart plays. Didn't cough the puck up.
Right.
Very, very happy. And we out-hit them 35-22.
Yeah.
We won the puck battles. Mm-hmm. We scored more than 2 goals for once. We got to have a little bit of the secondary scoring kicking in. Mm-hmm. And
the key with the hitting is that you are winning those puck battles. Like the hitting is leading to turnovers in possession. And
Claude Julien was the coach of the Boston Bruins for what?
Yeah, really.
How many years? And how many of those years were they the big bad Bruins?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So obviously he likes that hitting mentality.
Yeah, and maybe Bergevin knew that and kind of went on the headline to match that style.
For sure.
That's interesting.
Bergevin's he's like a bottom 6. Like he loves his bottom 6 players. Like he goes out, finds those like grinders.
Yeah.
But I mean, you got to trust the system. He like the game on Saturday against the Rangers was probably the Habs, one of their most complete games I've ever seen. Is going back a couple of seasons. They won puck battles. They didn't cough. One thing they've done more than anything the last, I'm gonna go say back to Christmas, is cough the puck up. Alex Galchenyuk has coughed the puck up numerous times. Yeah. Andrew Shaw takes stupid penalties in the last 4 minutes of the game.
Right.
And they've just turned it around. That game made me feel very confident in like the whole Marc Bergevin trust the system. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Maybe we are gearing up for a deep playoff run, and having those grinder guys it's gonna pay dividends.
Right. It's getting hot at the right time. And I mean I've heard a lot about Montreal and their position they're in, because they're top of the Atlantic, and they're likely to be the top of the Atlantic at this point, like for the rest of the season, because they've got it back together now. But that puts them in a position to play.
Bring on the Rangers.
The Rangers, yeah. I mean, bring them on. I guess you just had that game, and
Price has won 11 of his last 12 meetings with the Rangers, so bring them on. I'm not worried. But Julien getting the most of his players. Galchenyuk 7 points in 5 games. Mm-hmm. Towards the end of Tyrion's duties, people were, I don't know, it's all this Twitter banter.
Yeah.
People were saying he wasn't going to be the player, that he has shown flashes of.
Right.
But 7 points in 5 games, like he's getting that confidence back. He could go hot right at the right time.
Right.
Like if things are clicking going into the playoffs, there's not a better time to
it's all about
catch
timing.
A little bit of puck luck. And if there's one thing the Habs haven't had, is puck luck.
Yeah. Do you think having the coaching switch when it happened, that was a motivation? Like, have there been rumblings about like what the like culture was like in the locker room with Tyrion? Like that must it sounded pretty bad. But...
There's been rumors that he was very abusive, but I don't know. Like it's all speculation. Like it's Twitter banter. And I mean, there was favoritism. I mean, look at the Davy Darnay. Look at the bottom 6. There's Dale Weiss. When it is time in Montreal, like they were playing top line minutes. They have no business playing top line minutes.
I mean, the obvious calling PK out for mistakes to the media, that's that's
so
kind of a no.
It's crazy. The whole, the last year and a half since probably the Subban trade, it's been so many unanswered questions.
Excuse me. Yeah, it was a tumultuous last season. Obviously, it was train wreck. But like this season has been,
up and down.
downs. Yeah, totally.
But
Well,
we'll
it's
see.
good. You're getting hot at the right time, unlike
The Leafs.
the Leafs are doing the opposite.
The Leafs.
There was
Tell me about
so
the
much.
Leafs.
They had so much of they were in such a good position. Shockingly. I mean, going into the season, obviously a lot of Leafs fans, including myself, were like, okay, we've been burned so many times before by the promise of a rebuild, and like this is going to be turning a new leaf. And no pun intended. Wow. But this time it seemed to be everything's going correctly, and the whole idea of the Shana plan, the process, is the slow, steady build, and it's been.
Trust the process.
Yeah, you got to trust the process. Exactly. That's every team's got to trust their process. Have, gradual success is okay. You can, improve season by season in small increments. But they, exceeded expectations. Obviously, like no one thought they would be contending as close as they are, even at this point after they've gone on this cold streak, and yeah, so it creates kind of this false sense of you wanting it to happen now. It's like, okay, well, if they don't make the playoffs now, I'm going to be disappointed. And clearly they've just, I don't know, they've fallen off at the wrong time. And so their record in the last 10 is 3-4-3, which could look worse until you realize, they've lost, what is it? It's like their last something games in
it's that overtime kit, not even overtime, it's shootout, right?
It's shootout, yeah, exactly. They're 1-8 in the shootout this season. They can't win a shootout to save their life. That's terrible. And maybe I'm biased in not wanting there to be a shootout. I don't think anyone wants a shootout. And no one, if I'm looking across the league, there isn't a real shootout specialist team except for, strangely enough, 2 teams have an incredible record at the shootout.
Is LA one of them?
No.
LA has a really good LA has a really good OT record.
Okay, yeah, they're 2-3 at the shootout, so better than the Leafs. The Leafs have been to so many, by the way. They've been to 9 shootouts. But the 2 best teams in the league in terms of their win percentage at shootouts are Detroit with 7-0. 7-0.
That's crazy.
And this is even crazier. 5-1 record. The Arizona Coyotes.
Whoa!
So what is this? These clearly are teams.
I don't know.
How is this an indicator of good teams if these teams are in the basement of the NHL? I don't know. It's ridiculous. But I mean, you can't blame overtime for these Leafs losses. I mean, there's been a lot of.
You'd think with overtime being so young.
Yeah.
The Leafs would just rock overtime.
Yeah, exactly. And the shootout too. It's young, flashy players with a lot of speed and want to do crazy stuff. Did you see the quick save on Nylander, by the way?
Yeah.
The shootout? Oh.
Did you see Kucherov's shootout goal on Leonard?
Oh, yeah. Wasn't there debate on if that was intentional or not?
I've seen, I grew up with a kid who used to try that move all the time.
Yeah.
And it's I have no doubt in my mind that he meant to do that. That is you push it forward, you lift your stick up just a little bit, you fake cutting across on your backhand, you just let it drift straight.
Yeah.
And that goalie opens up his 5-hole and it just hits it.
And Leonard is a notoriously weak shootout guy, so I think he had the balls to be go in and be okay, I can do this. This is gonna be doable against Leonard. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's those mistakes that just happen at inopportune times and throwing away games in the last few minutes. And
they do throw away a lot of
many
games, blowing the 1-goal, 2-goal leads in the third.
Yeah, and that's one of the bigger issues with the young team too. That's still trying to learn kind of. Leafs aren't a great face-off team either. They need to kind of that's a thing that takes a lot of experience and getting used to. It's just
it's crazy that you probably came into this season thinking, oh, we're probably gonna be shit this year.
Yeah, I
guess you said it earlier, but now that you're so close, it's you're good. Leaf fans
are
going to be disappointed.
and definitely not holding out. I'm still holding out some hope, but. We had, 10 or so games ago, we had a couple games on Boston, and, they were, doing, okay, so. More than 10 games ago, I guess, before they fired Julian. But, yeah, we had this, opportunity to basically really capitalize on that, get a good cushion, maybe even jump into, second in the Atlantic, even first, before Montreal kind of went on their hot tear. And it's all disappeared. We don't have the games in hand. We have one game in hand on Boston now, and they have a 4-point advantage. Like it's now looking like the best option is to get that final wildcard spot. And you don't want that final wildcard spot because then you have to play Washington, who, if this is not their year, then I honestly think like this is going to be peak Washington. They have a lot of UFAs coming up actually. Like it's not they have to go for it this year, and that's why they added Shattenkirk.
Holtby is like playing killer hockey. And Shattenkirk, I was like watching video of Shattenkirk feeding Ovi for the one-timer from the point. Oh my God.
That's a crazy, that's like...
He's such a good power play like quarterback, Shattenkirk. Like that's such a great pickup. And just him with Ovechkin on the ice is terrifying.
You don't see it in hockey, but it's starting to look like a Golden State Warriors, Cleveland Cavaliers, like type of like super team. Like Backstrom is
criminally underrated.
Yeah, criminally underrated, like a top at least 20. I would go like as high as maybe 10 player in the league. Ovechkin's Ovechkin, obviously. You know, Oshie's a great piece. Williams is, he's old, but he's still like putting up great numbers.
Oshie's there for the shootouts.
Yeah, Kuznetsov.
Oh man.
But yeah,
he had a crazy week.
Kuznetsov. Oh yeah, he was the first star, wasn't he? Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking at their cap friendly, who they have kind of coming up for as UFAs. They have TJ Oshie, they have Justin Williams. Kuznetsov's an RFA at the end of the season.
He's gonna get a pay raise.
Massive. He's at like $6 million, absolute minimum. But that's the thing. They have to re-sign all these guys, and then they have Alzner, Shattenkirk, Orlov is an RFA. So like, there's a lot of people they need to re-sign, and they're not going to get all of them back for sure because a lot of them need raises. So
Shattenkirk probably won't sign there.
No. Well, he wants to be a Ranger so badly.
That's what I've heard.
And I bet, obviously they'd be
happy
to have him. Yeah.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
So it's we're just past the trade deadline. The Leafs haven't had a captain.
Yeah.
Since the Phaneuf trade.
Yep.
Is it for sure they enter next season with a captain? And is that captain Austin Matthews?
I feel like Lou Lamoriello is the kind of guy who, doesn't want to jump to those kind of, personnel decisions that quickly. I know he was...
As a fan, would you be happy if he was captain next season? Like if they announced it in the offseason?
Something would feel weird about it. But at the end of the day, he's their top point getter. He's clearly an all-around amazing player. And he's clearly going to be their franchise cornerstone for like the foreseeable future. So
until he gets traded to Arizona.
Oh, nope. See, I don't care if you're born in Arizona. You don't want to leave the Toronto Maple Leafs and any player that comes to Toronto and has the chance to like bring Toronto the cup. That's next level. But yeah, it makes sense. It's always odd to me when you have a captain that young, but it makes sense.
Could you see anyone else on Edmonton being captain other than McDavid?
That's
true. He's like the youngest captain in whatever history.
It's interesting how it shifts kind of your mindset when he has that C, because like
he seems like such a mature player.
Exactly. Like I don't think of McDavid as like a young player anymore because he has that captaincy, and he treats it like, legitimately like it's with that kind of level of respect. So. Yeah, it makes sense.
Who else on Toronto really could be captain material?
Like, the talk going into this season was Riley. But at this point, like, I don't think he's a better choice than Matthews. No, there really isn't. I don't think there's another choice. I think that you kind of got to make a Matthews.
Riley would be the only other choice. Like, they're not going to give it to Bozak.
No, they're not going to give it to Kadri.
They're not going to give it to Gardner.
No. And that's about like JVR, but who knows if JVR is going to be around that much longer even necessarily. I personally think like he's a great piece, but
totally.
I think you got to give it to him, and might as well give it to him next season. It's strange to me to be that young, but like I said, it's when you reframe it as like, oh, they're the captain now, you kind of get used to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
do you think Matthews wins the Calder? I mean, obviously you're a Leaf fan.
Yeah.
So right now, Matthews is sitting at 31 goals, 24 assists, so 55 points. And Line has 32 goals, 26 assists for 58 points. And they're right around the same amount of games played.
Yeah.
Give or take less than a handful.
I mean, Matthews has had cold and hot streaks. And I mean, that happens with every player. When he's hot, he's red hot. And, I mean, I don't know. I think Line is going to win the points race. He's going to win the goals race ultimately. Especially, you got to look at the momentum of the Leafs right now and how they're doing. And hopefully that doesn't continue. Hopefully they have a nice reset Tuesday and they kind of like continue their regular season well. But
do you factor in like the team's performances? That being said, they're very close.
yeah.
Leafs are 1 point out of a playoff spot. Winnipeg is 2 points out of a playoff spot.
Right.
Are line mates? Who does Matthews play with? Hyman
and I feel like it rotates sometimes.
Yeah, but Hyman's another rookie.
Yeah, Hyman's another rookie.
And Laine's playing with like Wheeler and
Scheifele.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 all-stars.
So I mean, I think you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, for sure.
I think Babcock said it. Babcock said something, well, in respect to Austin Matthews, he plays with 2 rookies most of the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, that does have an impact.
It's true. I think he's honestly the best player, but I feel like that's not necessarily who. There's a lot of other factors, like if someone wins the points race, like I mean we saw Panarin last year. I mean, looking at the description of the Calder, it's the player selected that's most proficient in his first year of competition in the NHL. So most proficient, I guess last year when you're talking about the Calder, McDavid wasn't, I don't know. I guess it depends on how you define proficient.
Okay, so at what point then? Let's say they finish at the season within. Let's say Matthews and Laine are within 4 or 5 points.
Yeah.
At what point do you bring Zach Werenski into the conversation? He's on points. He's on pace for almost 50 points as a rookie defenseman. He just beat the Columbus scoring record for a rookie set by Rick Nash. Mm-hmm. He's the quarterback of their power play. He plays top 2 minutes. Yeah. And at what point do you involve Matt Murray? I know he's already won a cup and people don't like that, but to be that young, and goalies, keep into consideration, goalies usually blossom a little later in life. They take longer to progress. So at what point do we not talk about Laine and Matthews and talk about maybe, and like I use the word underdog kind of loosely, but the underdogs.
But they are for sure. I think those two, maybe Murray's not an obvious lock for a nomination, but Werenski is definitely a lock. I would say those should be the nominees.
Who? Werenski, Matthews, and Laine?
And then Laine. And is it 3 or 4?
3.
It's 3? So yeah.
I think
those 3.
Yeah.
Murray's playing as like decently as a goalie. And the thing is, if you're comparing them, Laine and Matthews are right at the top of the scoring race across the NHL. You can talk about how amazing what Werenski's doing right now, like how great that is, but at the end of the day, like Laine and Matthews are doing something incredible as skaters that like it is so rare in itself. Yeah. It's great to have a high scoring like rookie defenseman. That's pretty impressive, but I think it's another level of impressive to be like in the Rocket Richard conversation as a rookie. And both of them, like it's a crazy rookie year.
Yeah, and like you can go outside of those, 4, and you got Matthew Tkachuk putting up points.
Yep.
You've got and Matthew Tkachuk, he's a feisty player right there. Mm-hmm. And in other years, he'd be taking it, and you have like there's guys like Sebastian Aho.
Yeah.
On Carolina, who I love watching. Guys got hands.
Yeah.
In other years, they probably would have been considered, but everything's overshadowed this year by the Matthews-Laine debate.
It's a crazy rookie year. Yeah, I don't know. It's got to be one or Matthews or Laine, because what they're doing in terms of goal scoring, what they're doing in terms of... I mean, if you just look at what Matthews is doing for his team, without Matthews are the Toronto Maple Leafs
Yeah.
I mean, they've got a lot of great pieces, but he is the engine to that,
100%.
That forward core.
Speaking of Werenski, what I don't understand, and it's baffled me all year, and we'll dive into it, but when did the Columbus Blue Jackets get good? Because if you remember last year, they were awful.
We're in a fantasy league together, and I drafted Bobrovsky in the 10th round, midway through the 10th round. He is, like, if not the best, like, top 3 fantasy goalies available. Yeah,
Atkinson's
having
having
expectation.
Atkinson's having a career year. Then they got the performance from Werenski. Sad's playing well. I mean, is it Torts? Is it John Tortorella?
It can't be, because he sucks. I don't know. It's so weird.
I'd love to, like, play for, like, I don't play much hockey anymore, but I would love to know what it's like to play hockey for John Tortorella. No one in the league gets fired up like he does.
And do the players, like, get into that, or are they, like,
yeah, it's so hard to tell,
or I don't know.
Like, obviously they're gonna, like, save face in the media.
Yeah,
like,
they can't be like, oh, he's a shit coach.
Yeah. But do you think,
totally.
like, they're like, oh, I wish I had another coach who didn't explode so much? Like, the game Montreal beat them in overtime, he was like, players had to put, like, I forget who it was, but someone on Columbus had to, like, pull him off the ice because he just he couldn't not give it to the ref.
Right.
He was just lipping off to the ref nonstop, and it's like, at what point it's like, okay, Torts, reel her in, let's go to the room, we lost.
Yeah.
No matter what you say, it's not going to change the outcome.
It's not him. I can't be him. I no. Honestly, don't know. And I haven't watched enough of the Blue Jackets to honestly, like, break down what they're doing. But I mean, numbers wise, yeah, they've had a lot of.
I feel like he's like the
scoring really well.
Like, besides the Zach Werenski and Atkinson playing kind of out of his mind, like, what is? I mean, Bobrovsky was kind of garbage last year.
Yeah, he had an off year. And I think that makes some difference. That would mean they wouldn't have
going
been
from a bad goalie to a top tier goalie.
They wouldn't have been as total garbage last year if Bobrovsky had a decent season. Like, just even,
for sure.
Yeah. So that's a huge factor.
But you also see Team USA in the World Cup of Hockey, who Torts coached.
Yep.
Go 4-2, 2-4.
2-4. Yeah.
Didn't win a single game in the round robin. I mean, at what point? It's crazy. It's coaches.
I don't get it.
Coaching is like the most. I feel like is the most complicated thing.
Yeah, and the idea of firing a coach,
fire a coach mid-season.
Yeah, but just the idea that we need to fire the coach. It's such a it's kind of like saving face with the media and being like, oh yeah, that's what we're doing. We're gonna fire the coach. That'll solve everything. It's not. It's kind of just a way to be like, here's something to say we're gonna change to our fans. But
I totally agree with you. But if you look at this season, so far, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coaches have been fired this season. New York Islanders fired Jack Capuano. Boston fired Claude Julien. Florida fired Gerard Gallant. St. Louis fired Ken Hitchcock. And Montreal fired Tyrion.
Yeah.
3 of those 5 teams are in playoff spots. I mean, obviously Montreal's in a playoff spot. They did this unorthodox thing where they fired their coach and they were in first place, which is crazy. But they're three of them are in
first
the
place in
playoffs.
that crap division. So like
the Florida flop firing, I did not understand because I really like Gerard Gallant, and I think a lot of it had to do with injuries. I mean, at one point you had 3 of your top 6 out. It's gonna hurt you.
And they didn't get really into a playoff position until they got Huberdeau and Barkov back. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay.
And they're close. They're not in a playoff position yet, but they're close. They've been catching fire. And Ken Hitchcock, who I didn't really expect to be fired, they're out of a playoff spot right now. But, I mean, it's St. Louis. Like, they're all in right now. Like, if they're going to win, now is the time to win.
Well, I mean, yeah. But they could have held on to Shattenkirk and not tried to get value for him at the deadline if they thought that.
I know, but, I mean, for someone who has come out and said, I don't want to play here.
That's true. Yeah.
I agree. Like, it's hard to
give that up, and because it's signaling to an extent that it's
for sure
we're not all in because we want to save some face for the future, but
I mean, Pittsburgh last year fired Mike Johnson, hired Mike Sullivan, and they went on to win the cup.
Yeah. The Islanders, I remember people talking about how trash they were, like, you know, maybe a third way through the season. Caught fire and they're in a playoff position.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
It's a tight race. Like it's crazy. There's
the
6
East is
teams.
nuts.
6 teams within 5 points of the wild card in the East.
Mm-hmm. Who do you think actually has a chance of making the playoffs?
I think Toronto makes the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's out though? Islanders?
Yeah, I don't think Islanders are that good.
Yeah. But then so the Leafs take out second wild card. Unless, I mean, I would have thought Boston would have, not, they're heating up at the right time too though.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
I also feel like as much as the kind of crappy point system we're running right now kind of hurt the trade deadline, it does make for a very exciting playoff race.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it was a boring deadline.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of big pieces moving because no one really knows if they're sellers or buyers.
The big things, Washington trade was cool. Bishop was like
kind of out
bizarre,
of the blue, but big trade. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it's going to be a really exciting, like, before the playoffs, hockey's going to be pretty exciting.
It's going to be great to have most of the Canadian teams in the playoffs.
Montreal plays Ottawa 3 times in their last 6 games.
That's wild.
Wild.
It would be such a dream come true for the Atlantic to be Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto in some order, because then you have a quarterfinal that's 2 of those teams, and then theoretically a semifinal that's the other pairing.
Look at Canadian teams. So right now, Montreal, Ottawa, and Edmonton, and Calgary are in the playoff spots. Winnipeg is 2 points out. Toronto's 1 point out. Yeah. And Vancouver's kind of the outsider looking at 5 points out. Yeah, I don't think they're going to make it either. But could you imagine 5 out of 6 teams? That'd be great.
That'd be unreal. Even with, even if the Leafs don't make it, it's still going to be entertaining as a Leafs fan to see, Canada fired up. That it changes how people the buzz about hockey in the playoffs. Like it's a hockey crazy country, and a city in particular. But at the end of the day, if there's not Canadian teams in it, I feel like viewership drops off a lot more, even than other sports necessarily.
For sure. And even just going out in Toronto, we live in Toronto, so when the Leafs, and it's gonna kill me to say this, but when the Leafs are in the playoffs, or if they're doing well, it's just when the Raptors are doing well, the Blue Jays are doing well. There's a buzz.
Oh, there's
a buzz in the city. Everyone's kind of keeping track. It's it's that thing about sports that it's everyone's watching.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's what it does for a city to kind of unify people and have everyone talking about something. I live outside 2 sports bars. And in the playoffs with the Jays, for sure, if someone hit a home run...
You can hear it.
You can hear it loud and clear. I remember the walk-off by Encarnacion, in the wild card. I was in bed and I was about to, turn the game on, and I hear that happen because I had just gotten back from something late, and I was like, what happened? And I turned it on and saw the replay of it, and I was like, oh, I just missed that. Yeah, good times. But yeah, no, it's going to be an exciting few weeks. Also... By the way, this reminds me, we're talking about exciting kind of down the stretch in Toronto. I want to show you something. I got a surprise. Got a little game surprise. If you want to riff for a second, I'll look this up. But I got it, I swear. I've got a little something. I'm going to have you tell people what it is. Check that out. Wait till that attachment loads. I did a little website work, and I got this as payment, and it's pretty great. Look at those seats.
Oh wow!
Tell them what it is.
Leaf tickets. Section 106, row 22.
Gold level seats. Last regular season game against the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yo, could you imagine if that's a win for the playoffs?
So I did this website, and that was the payment they gave me, and they were like, "What games do you want to our options?" And I said the Penguins game the night before, the second last game of the season, was my top, but this was my second one because it could be a deciding game.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've got 4 tickets. If you want it,
I'm there.
It's yours.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll have a good time. All right, that about wraps it up. Thanks a lot for listening, everyone. And shouts out to Tattoo Sound and Music. This is the studio we're at. This is quite the upgrade from when we did the videos in my house. Yeah, it's great. So check them out. tattoomusic.com.
TA2music.com.
Yes, TA2 is how you spell tattoo.
Follow us on Twitter and on Instagram
Yep.
@Puck Talk Show for lots of daily content. And we will see you next week.
Yep. Keep watching hockey.